If you clicked this thinking you were about to hear the same recycled gossip, stick around, because what you're about to get is a full, story-driven breakdown that walks you through every moment people point to when they say, "Did she really just do that?" This isn't a quick hit job or a rushed list. It's a slow burn, moment by moment, where you can decide for yourself whether these clips show awkward misunderstandings or a pattern that's hard to ignore. And trust me, by the time you reach the later moments, especially the one near the end, you'll understand exactly why so many viewers walked away stunned. It starts with a moment that should have been all about fashion and grace. Paris Fashion Week, flashing lights, elite designers, and a runway where models are expected to glide flawlessly. But in one clip that made the rounds, a model stumbled. It wasn't dramatic, just one of those human slips that happen even at the highest levels. What caught attention wasn't the fall, it was Meghan's reaction. Cameras captured her laughing openly, turning to the person seated beside her as if to share the joke. She seemed to expect the same response, a shared chuckle at someone else's misstep. But the man next to her didn't laugh. He stayed neutral. And in that split second, her expression changed. The smile dropped, her face tightened, and the annoyance was visible. It looked less like embarrassment and more like irritation that her humor hadn't landed. For many watching later, it felt uncomfortable, like Hollywood reflexes colliding with a setting where empathy usually takes the lead. Then there was Wimbledon, a place known for its traditions, its etiquette, and its respect for fans who line up for hours just to get a seat. Meghan intended to support Serena Williams, which in itself seemed harmless and even admirable. But what happened around her seat became the real headline. Reports spread that she asked for the surrounding seats to be cleared, effectively creating a buffer zone in the middle of a public sporting event. Fans who had waited patiently were suddenly told they couldn't sit there. It didn't stop there. Security was seen approaching a man and reprimanding him for taking photos. The twist? He was snapping a selfie, and Meghan wasn't even visible in the frame. To many, it came across as excessive, a celebrity demand clashing hard with the idea of a public venue where everyone else had followed the rules. A different kind of moment unfolded at the Hamilton charity performance in London in 2018. It was supposed to be elegant, tightly organized, and governed by royal protocol. As people lined up for photos, cameras caught Meghan physically nudging a man aside to take her place at the front. It wasn't subtle, and it wasn't gentle. The man looked startled, clearly not expecting to be moved out of the way. Protocol dictated positioning, order, and deference, but none of that seemed to matter in that instant. There was no pause, no apology, just a direct move to secure a center position. For critics, it looked like entitlement overriding decorum. Things got even more awkward after a polo match in Florida when Harry's team celebrated a win. Meghan stepped onto the stage for the photo session, which initially didn't raise eyebrows. Supporting your spouse is normal. But then she reached for a trophy box that didn't belong to Harry at all. It was meant for one of his teammates. The player had to pull it back, creating a visibly uncomfortable moment. As the photos continued, she ducked under arms, repositioned herself, and maneuvered to stay front and center. Watching it back, many felt secondhand embarrassment. It wasn't her trophy, it wasn't her achievement, yet she seemed determined not to fade into the background for even a second. In the Netflix documentary, there's a quieter moment that still managed to spark backlash. Meghan was chatting casually with her friend Mindy Kaling. The tone was relaxed, conversational, the kind of exchange close friends have. Then Mindy referred to her as Meghan Markle. Meghan immediately corrected her, cutting in to say she now goes by Sussex. On its own, that might sound sentimental, wanting to share a family name with her children, but the delivery mattered. Her tone came across sharp, almost scolding. This wasn't a formal interview or a stranger making a mistake, it was a friend. The interruption felt unnecessary, and viewers noticed how quickly the warmth shifted. "I don't think anyone in the world knows that Meghan Markle has eaten Jack in the Box and loves it," Mindy joked, trying to keep things light. Meghan responded by pointing out again that she's Sussex now. The exchange left many wondering if even close friends can't casually say her name without correction. What does that say about the atmosphere around her? Another telling moment involved her mother, Doria. During a public appearance, Meghan was speaking when Doria chimed in with a comment. The reaction was immediate and visible. Meghan snapped her head toward her mother, eyes wide, lips tight, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. It was the kind of look that silently says, "You just crossed a line." Most people brush off interruptions from parents with humor or affection. Here, the tension felt thick. Even her own mother stepping into the conversation seemed to unsettle her. At the British Fashion Awards in 2018, everything was planned down to the minute. There was a script, a schedule, and designated presenters. Rosamund Pike was set to present an award, but at the last minute, Meghan appeared and took over the role without prior announcement. Backstage, organizers scrambled to adjust. On stage, Rosamund was left to step aside, visibly awkward, while Meghan delivered the presentation as if it had always been her slot. There was no acknowledgement of the change, no apology for the disruption. It looked like another instance of seeing a spotlight and stepping directly into it, regardless of who was supposed to be there. The Royal Salute Polo Challenge brought another uncomfortable scene. Harry's team had won, and the trophy presentation was meant to highlight the charity behind the event. Dr. Sophie Chandauka, the chairwoman of the charity, stood next to Harry, representing years of dedication to the cause. As photos began, Meghan approached and told Dr. Sophie to move. Not asked, told. The goal was clear. She wanted to stand next to Harry in the center. The charity, the woman being honored, the purpose of the event all seemed secondary in that moment. What should have been a celebration of service shifted into another debate about positioning and spotlight. In South Africa in 2019, Meghan visited a human AIDS support group. One woman shared her story: an arranged marriage as a teenager, an HIV diagnosis during pregnancy, the birth of a healthy baby, and the devastating loss of that child later on. It was raw, emotional, and deeply personal. As the woman spoke, the room was quiet, focused. Then Meghan interrupted her mid-story to instruct everyone to sit on the floor for a photo. She offered a quick apology, but her attention quickly turned to the cameras. When the visit ended, Meghan reportedly left behind second-hand clothes in garbage bags. There was no lingering comfort, no visible emotional connection. For many watching, it felt less like empathy and more like a staged moment designed for optics. At King Charles's 70th birthday garden party, reports surfaced that Meghan openly complained about being bored. Not quietly, not discreetly, but within earshot of others. When Camilla reminded her of protocol, that Harry needed to walk ahead, Meghan responded by making a face behind Camilla's back. Cameras even caught her sticking out her tongue. At a royal event. Eventually, an aide informed Harry that their car was ready, a subtle but clear signal that it was time to leave. She didn't exit triumphantly, she was ushered out. There was also a 2019 royal event where Meghan was surrounded by children. Instead of warmth or joy, her expression appeared tense, her jaw clenched, her eyes distant. She looked uncomfortable, almost irritated. For someone who often speaks about compassion and motherhood, the contrast didn't go unnoticed. Cameras don't lie, and the footage raised questions about how genuine that nurturing image really is. At a Canucks hockey game on Autism Acceptance Night, the focus was meant to be on inclusion and respect. An autistic singer, Mariah Wright-Meyer, performed the Canadian national anthem. It was a meaningful moment. Harry stood solemn and respectful. Meghan, however, was caught smiling, laughing, and smirking during the performance, as if engaged in a private joke. On a night dedicated to awareness and sensitivity, the behavior struck many as tone-deaf. The Inktivist Games are meant to honor wounded veterans, people who sacrificed deeply in service. During one appearance, Meghan walked ahead of the veterans, smiling broadly at cameras, glancing around like she was on a red carpet. Others maintained solemn expressions, understanding the gravity of the event. Her demeanor felt out of place, and critics argued it shifted attention away from those the Games were created to honor. And then there's the moment that nearly crossed into international controversy. At the Inktivist Games, Meghan approached the husband of Colombia's vice president. She stood very close, touched his back, laughed, and engaged him with that familiar charm. The vice president turned around, and for a brief second, the tension was palpable. Harry stepped in quickly, positioning himself between them, hands raised in a calming gesture. The situation diffused, but not before viewers caught the unease. It looked like flirtation in a setting where diplomacy matters. Harry's expression said it all. He knew how close things had come to spiraling. So there it is, 14 moments that continued to circulate, debated and dissected frame by frame. Some people see misunderstandings, others see a consistent pattern, and notably, this doesn't even touch the many clips where critics argue she was dismissive or cold toward Harry himself, enough material for an entirely separate discussion. Now it's your turn. Which moment stood out to you the most? The sharp correction of a close friend, the tongue at a royal party, the interruption of a heartbreaking story, or the near diplomatic slip? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this breakdown kept you hooked, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's next.